Hey guys, today we're going to be kind of doing a quick portfolio review just to kind of keep everything fresh, and talk a little bit more specifically and do some brainstorming for that portfolio homepage. One of the things I did kind of note toward the end of the presentation, and I'll come back to it, is that we do brainstorming for this first because usually it also not only gets some ideas for the portfolio, but it also just helps people be a little bit more clear and have a sense of what the portfolio is and makes people a little bit more comfortable with that before they start working on some of the other pages and adding some of that other content. Now, sometimes the prompts for this, people do kind of struggle with it a little bit because it's kind of like writing an introduction to an essay. Sometimes it's hard for people to do the introduction before they've done a lot of the other stuff. So a lot of times the portfolio, even though we brainstorm for it first, it comes together last, and that's fine. But we are going to go ahead and brainstorm it first. The first thing we're going to do is a quick portfolio assignment sheet sort of review. So here we are at the revised copy. And again, if you want to look at the original portfolio assignment sheet that we went over before we changed after everything went online, the first one that we looked at, the link is here on the assignment sheet. You're welcome to go back and revisit it, especially if you're deciding to use Wix. But again, one of the things that we're kind of covering with this is that you are welcome to use a Google Doc for the reflective components. So before, where we had these different tabs, we had a portfolio home, we had an inquiry project tab with links to the annotated bib and the digital essay, and we had a writing theory tab. What you'll have is one Google Doc with sections. It's like an essay. For the portfolio intro, for the inquiry project with links still to your annotated bib, to your digital essay on Wix, and to your writing theory. You'll still have all the same stuff in it, just a lot less need for design and playing around with some of the detailed work of working with the Wix platform. And you're welcome to do that. I kind of left it open because I know a lot of people already had really started working on their Wix design and just decided to go ahead and stick with it because they've already done a lot of work with it, and that's cool too. I will, if that is you, I will be counting, considering when I'm looking at design for websites, that people have not been able to get like time with me. I know with Google Meet we can do a little bit of like, you can set up a Google Meet and I can look at your editing page, or you can send me a link, I can look at your screen. But it's still not quite the same as face-to-face, and we're not getting quite as much of that. So I will be taking that into consideration with the design of your portfolio. So if you want to work with the Wix site, you're welcome to, but you do have that sort of out to help with that. I do still expect the Google Doc to be clean looking, still with consideration for design and how it looks. Remember the visual mode. It always matters how everything looks. Sorry, you're getting some fun sound effects in the background. My puppy is playing with her toy, and it squeaks a lot. Okay, so with that, the goal is for the portfolio, you still have these two types of assignments. You have the evidence of your work from this semester, which is, of course, your inquiry project, the annotated bib, and the digital essay. It's also the examples that you choose for your work. Remember, you have to have 3 examples of your work in the, so I'll go down here and kind of show that while I'm talking about it. You have at least 3 pieces of process work. So brainstorming in your notebooks, screenshots of outlines, drafts in your Google Doc history, your Wix history, feedback on your work, things that show your process in your inquiry project section or tab. And then for the writing theory, I'll scroll down on that assignment sheet. You've got, along with the 2 course texts and referencing the 2 key concepts, referencing at least 5 examples of your work. 1 has to be the digital essay or annotated bib, so one of your major assignments, a studio activity, a reading response, and then the other 2 are up to you. So if you could do your other major assignment, you could do something from your notebook. You have some options here, and some people, obviously 5 is the minimum. Will use like a couple of assignments together. So might use some, notes from your notebook and, things like that. So I'm going to go back. Okay. So here's where we are, just sort of kind of going over everything. And then you also have the reflective components that make up a large part of everything, like the writing theory and the inquiry project reflection and the home page, the things that actually like frame and discuss the work that's included in your portfolio. And the aim is for it to, of course, create a picture of your semester, of what you've learned, what you've worked on, your polished drafts, the things you've selected. Just to create that holistic picture, and the portfolio is graded holistically, which we'll kind of go over again in a minute. So again, you have that portfolio intro, which is sort of just kind of opening your portfolio, explaining what your portfolio is for this class for an outside reader, what it's supposed to include, what it shows about your work, what you've learned. So the things you include are first the rhetorical situation. So what is the portfolio for the class, why we're keeping it, what it shows. That means, an overview, an explanation of its purpose, a brief description of its contents, your LOI topic, that kind of stuff, just to give people a holistic sense. And then information about the key goals that we covered. So that's where you describe and define in your own words the key concepts we've been talking about this semester. And then in the next part is the inquiry project, either section heading if you're in a Google Doc, or tab if you're on Wix. Again, you're still going to have hyperlinks to major assignments, images of your work if you're working on a Google Doc. But this is for kind of the house for your project. It includes a lot of things. It includes, one, access to those assignments, because again, this is the home for them. So this is where we should go to access them. So a link to your Google Doc annotated bib, and a link to your digital essay on Wix, context for the project, for those individual assignments, and then a reflection on those assignments, on the trajectory of your thinking through your project, on those projects like goals, what you worked on, revisions, things like that. So for the individual types of prompts, you got 3 kind of types of prompts. It gets more specific as you move through. So the first prompt is for your project as a whole. So providing some overall context for the project in its entirety. This is where you kind of talk about why you picked this topic for an outside reader of the class. Why you thought the issue was important, relevant, what changed during your research in terms of the focus of your research, your LOI question, the trajectory of your thinking for each major assignment. So the annotated bib and the digital essay, you have 2 sort of like smaller general prompts to explain. So kind of the rhetorical context. So the overall goals, like class goals and writing and research goals for each of those assignments, and the genre expectations. So an outside reader knows. And again, access to that assignment. The last one is this individual sort of reflection you're going to do for each of your major assignments. There's 5 prompts. Most of these prompts are more relevant to the digital essay, because that's where you had most of the decisions that you've made on your own. And I kind of tried to note that throughout. So the first one is your goals. And again, this one, your goals, you weren't really given that many decisions to make for yourself necessarily that weren't research related. So you're welcome to talk about some of those with the annotated bib. But the first couple of prompts kind of talk or refer a little bit more to the digital essay, or more relevant there. So explaining the vision behind that essay. So your purpose, thesis, target audience, all that stuff. Changes you made during your drafting process to the essay, to that vision, strategies you use to address your target audience. So things you want to note about how you arranged it, rhetorical appeals possibly, or certain appeals that you used, your choices with design or use of sources, things that you did specifically that you were trying to kind of engage specifically like that target audience, and what strategies you were using. Skills you worked on. This is definitely for both assignments. There's a lot of like research skills and writing skills that we used in both. We did a lot of in the annotated bib, for instance, with like evaluating and researching authors and objective writing styles and different types of sources and research and that kind of stuff. And so things that especially like things that you revised and worked on with some of those skills. So this is going to be, number 4 is going to be the kind of where you should spend the most of your time. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Number 5 is kind of a final thought. I kind of want you to think about the fact that, writing can always change. And even if after you finish something, there's still things that can still be done with it. It's never really, done. So I want you to think about something that you really are proud of, that you think you did really well with, that came out well, and something you would work on if you had more time with each of those assignments. And again, you get at least 3 pieces of process work that we kind of already talked about, and 650 words, which is about 2 pages, something like that, if you were doing like the Times New Roman, 12-point font, all that stuff. And then the writing theory, which we've talked a lot about, so I'm going to skip the review for that for now. We'll come back to it. And then again, down here you've got your portfolio assessment, and we'll go over this at a later date also, but it is here, the portfolio assessment scale. It is very long, because one of the things I try to do with this is take a lot of the goals from all of your assignment sheets and put them into one place, so you can use kind of one checklist for requirements and expectations for everything that goes on your portfolio in one place, so it's super detailed. And it also shows the rubric, which is very holistic. It's not based on individual assignments, it's based on the skills that we're working on this semester, so you'll be able to kind of notice that. And we'll come back to it in a later portfolio review. But I do want to get back to here, what we're actually working on today. So the first thing to just kind of remember is, again, you have the Wix and the Google Docs option. So on Wix, this will be your tab, your portfolio home tab. It'll be your first paragraph or section, so your portfolio intro if you're using the Google Doc option. So we're going to start with just like kind of reviewing those requirements here. So the first thing is you want to make sure with both, I'm going to pull my face a little bit out of the way here, is you're explaining the context and the purpose of the portfolio as a whole. So it should be clear to an outside reader. Again, someone else, other faculty besides me may read this. You want it to be clear to anybody who reads your portfolio why you're keeping it, what it's for, what it's supposed to show. So again, from the assignment sheet, you want to make sure you have an overview and explanation of the portfolio as a whole, its purpose, and a brief description of what's included in it, your LOI, that kind of stuff. A good way to start is to welcome your readers. Again, make sure it's clear, thinking about making sure it's clear for any audience, not just me and other people in the class who've read the assignment sheet. Remember, all text should kind of be standalone and reader friendly. That's part of having rhetorical knowledge. This is definitely something that is relevant on the homepage, is making sure that you're thinking about making stuff clear for your reader and for kind of any reader. You may include images. To help, you're not required to include any personal information or images. I'll know it's your portfolio. You're going to submit it under your name on Wix. So again, you're not required to do any of that. One common mistake that people make, again, with this is that they just focus on their LOI and talk about how the portfolio is about your LOI, and the portfolio is not about your LOI. The LOI pertains to your research project that we did work on a lot this semester, but it's one piece of the portfolio. It's not the focus of the portfolio. So it's definitely not what you want to open with. The goal of the portfolio is the class and the key concepts and what we've worked on and skills and things like that, not just the topic of your LOI. You want to make sure you explain the key concepts. So again, in your own words, what are each of those 5 skills? What are they for someone not in this class? And also kind of paraphrasing it. Again, paraphrasing shows knowledge, so it also kind of shows that it gives you a chance to practice putting it in your own words and shows that you understand what skills we've been working on. Design and navigation. Again, this does pertain more to people with Wix. You do want to pay attention to how things look, even on a Google Doc, and making sure things are clean and well spaced and all of those things, well contrasted, repetition with titles and format and things like that. You still might explain the contents. If you're using a Google Doc, you might not have this other section because you might be explaining the contents of your portfolio early on. You don't have to go in any particular order. But if you have things on Wix and you have various tabs, you might need to make at least a quick note about like what the design concept is and how to find things on Wix if you have a lot kind of going on. Then there's some homepage examples here that when you go to the presentation, you're welcome to kind of look at some different ones. So if you're on Wix, we have this one. It's not really thinking too fast. So again, he's got the opening paragraph. It does have a little bit more about how to navigate, and then descriptions of those key concepts. So then you can kind of see how one looks. Pull up one more. This one is a little bit more essayistic. Again, you're not required to have anything close to this level of detail, especially with everything kind of going on, but you can kind of see, move this over, how another one looks. why was this made? So main purposes, what are the key concepts and things we've worked on this semester, explaining each of the concepts. You get the pattern, right? I feel like that's pretty easy to get. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of note taking. I want you in your notebook just to practice. Take 4 to 5 minutes. Don't spend really long on this. And try not to look anything up. Remember, the best way to paraphrase is to try to do it from memory. So if you can't get all of them, that's fine right now. I want you to try as much as possible to try to remember and do it in your own words. Try to write down what you remember of the 5 key concepts, which ones you remember. If you remember all of them, awesome. Try to explain what you think they are or what they refer to from memory, and try to come up with an example. Again, take 4 to 5 minutes and try to get as far as you can with this, and try to do it as much from memory as possible. You can always go back and check later, but again, it's helpful to see what you really do kind of remember on your own. I also want you to take a few minutes next and just try to answer a couple of questions about the portfolio. Just try to take a stab at explaining the portfolio in your notebook. Again, if you don't try to put it in your own words, without looking and stuff like that, it's hard to tell if you know how to do it and where your questions and problems are. So you got 3 questions here. What is the portfolio supposed to show about your writing and research? Again, the portfolio is about the class, about writing and research, not just your LOI topic. What would you say this portfolio is supposed to show about your understanding of course concepts? So also explaining the role of the key. Hold on, I have a typo. You're not seeing this. This is totally not happening right now. Oh, it really isn't because my keyboard broke. Okay, we go. What is the role of the key concepts in this class? Super important question. You want to make sure you can explain that to an outside reader, and to me, because it's kind of a big deal. How can you explain your LOI and its role in the portfolio? That hits everything that you need to know to explain the portfolio. How do the key concepts fit into the class? What is their role? How does the inquiry project basically and your topic fit into the class and help us work on things? What is the portfolio supposed to show about your work this semester? So take a few minutes, see what kind of the things you can come up with that, and then add in your notes at the end any problems you're having, explaining the portfolio, questions about prompts, questions about the portfolio that you have. If you have general questions about the portfolio, please post them in the coffee shop discussion, because it does let other people see questions and responses that might be really helpful to them, and even questions that they might not have thought of yet. So again, I'm going to backtrack. So some little practice with key concepts, answering some questions about the portfolio as a whole, and then any other kind of general problems or questions that you have, and then you will turn in your work when you're done.